cold wind rushed through the city streets as the bright lights of towering skyscrapers lit up the night. Inside one of those buildings on the very top floor sat a man who had everything: power, money, influence. He was the CEO of one of the most successful companies in the country, and people either feared him or wanted to be him. But despite all the wealth he had accumulated, there was something missing. Something he didn't even realize he was searching for until he met her. She wasn't like anyone he knew. While he drove luxury cars and attended high-profile meetings, she walked through crowded streets, blending into the world he barely noticed. She worked hard, struggling to make ends meet, her life a stark contrast to his. And yet, from the moment he saw her, something shifted. Maybe it was the way she carried herself, unshaken by the weight of the world. Or maybe it was her eyes filled with a quiet strength that made him question everything he thought he understood. Their worlds collided in the most unexpected way. He wasn't supposed to care. He had a carefully constructed life, one where emotions were distractions and relationships were business deals. But she wasn't a deal to be made. She was a mystery, one he couldn't walk away from. At first, she kept her distance. She had no interest in wealth or status, and she certainly didn't need saving. But there was something about him, something even she couldn't deny. He wasn't just another man in a suit. There was a look in his eyes that spoke of loneliness, of a longing for something real. And against her better judgment, she let her guard down. As their connection grew, so did the whispers around them. His world didn't welcome outsiders, especially not someone like her. The rumors spread, the judgment followed. People warned him, told him she was beneath him, that she had nothing to offer. But he didn't care. For the first time in his life, he was making choices based on feeling, not logic. But then came the secret. It was something she had hidden for so long, something that could change everything. He thought he knew her, thought he had finally found someone who saw him for who he really was, not just the CEO, but the man underneath. But when the truth came out, it shook him to his core. Was she really who he thought she was? Or had he been blind to the reality staring him in the face? And just like that, everything hung in the balance. He stood there, the weight of her secret pressing down on him like an invisible force. The woman he thought he knew, the one who had changed everything, was now a mystery he wasn't sure he could solve. His mind raced, trying to make sense of it all, but no matter how hard he tried, the pieces didn't fit the way he wanted them to. She watched him carefully, her expression unreadable. He could see the flicker of hesitation in her eyes, the quiet fear that he might walk away. A part of him wanted to. It would have been easier. He had spent years keeping his life controlled, predictable, and now everything felt uncertain. But even as doubt crept in, he couldn't ignore what he felt. He had seen too much of her, felt too much to pretend like none of it mattered. He needed answers, but more than that, he needed to understand why she had kept this from him. She took a slow breath, as if deciding how much to reveal. "I never meant to lie," she said softly. "I just didn't know how to tell you." He searched her face for any sign of deception, but all he saw was vulnerability. And that scared him more than the secret itself. "Then tell me now," he said. His voice was steady, but inside, he wasn't sure if he was ready for the truth. For a long moment she said nothing. Then finally, she looked away, as if the words were too heavy to meet his gaze. "It's complicated." The next few days were restless. His mind kept circling back to her, to that moment, to the weight of whatever she was carrying. He tried to focus on work, but every meeting, every phone call felt distant. His carefully structured complicated. The word echoed in his mind, frustration creeping in. He had built a career out of cutting through complications, finding solutions where others only saw problems. But this wasn't something he could fix with money or power. "You don't trust me," he said finally. It wasn't a question. Her eyes snapped back to his, something unreadable flashing in them. "It's not about trust." "Then what is it?" She opened her mouth as if to answer, but before she could, a voice interrupted them. "Is everything okay here?" They both turned. A man stood nearby, watching them carefully. He was older, dressed in simple clothes, but there was something in his posture, something protective. He wasn't just a stranger passing by. He knew her, and from the way she stiffened, he realized something else. She had been keeping more than one secret. He clenched his jaw, his mind working quickly. Who was this man? Why did she look like she wanted to run? She hesitated before answering, her voice quieter than before. "It's fine." The man didn't look convinced. His gaze flickered between them before settling on him. "You should leave her alone." A flicker of irritation sparked in his chest. "I think that's up to her." The man didn't back down, and for the first time, he saw something new in her expression: guilt. A sinking feeling settled in his stomach. He had thought the secret was something simple. Maybe a past she didn't want to talk about. Maybe something painful but understandable. But now, standing there with this stranger watching him like he was the problem, he realized it might be something much bigger. Something that could change everything. She turned to him, her voice almost pleading. "Please, just let it go for now." He stared at her, trying to decide if he could. But deep down, he already knew the answer. He couldn't. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken words and questions that refused to be answered. He could feel the distance growing, and it unnerved him. She was slipping away, and he didn't know how to stop it. The man standing nearby still hadn't moved, his presence an unspoken warning. There was a protectiveness in his stance, one that made it clear whatever secret she was keeping, he knew it too. She turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, just walk away." Something inside him twisted. He had fought for everything in his life, clawed his way to the top with determination and control. Walking away wasn't something he did. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw something he wasn't prepared for: fear. Not fear of him, but fear of what might happen if he pushed too hard. That unsettled him more than anything. He took a slow breath, trying to steady himself. "I just need to understand." Her hands clenched at her sides, and for a brief moment, he thought she might finally tell him. But instead, she shook her head. Not now. Frustration burned through him, but before he could say anything else, she turned and walked away. The man followed, casting one last glance in his direction, before disappearing into the night. He stood there, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: helpless. But he wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. Eve suddenly felt off balance. Then, just when he thought she might be gone for good, she showed up. It was late, the city quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic. He had been sitting alone in his office, staring at nothing, when the knock came. He turned, half expecting to see an assistant or security. But instead, it was her. She stepped inside hesitantly, her eyes scanning the room as if making sure they were alone. His heart pounded, but he kept his expression unreadable. "You're here." She nodded, closing the door behind her. "I didn't know where else to go." That admission did something to him. He wanted to reach for her, to pull her into his arms, and tell her whatever it was, they could face it together. But he didn't. Not yet. Instead, he stayed still, waiting. She exhaled shakily. "I need to tell you something." He leaned forward, his entire body tense. "Then tell me." She hesitated, her hands gripping the fabric of her coat. Then, finally, she spoke. And the moment the words left her lips, his world shattered. For a moment, he couldn't process what she had just said. The words echoed in his mind, but they felt distant, unreal. He had prepared himself for something shocking, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. She stood there waiting for his reaction, her hands gripping the edge of her coat, as if holding herself together. Her eyes searched his face, looking for something, understanding, anger, anything. But he couldn't move, couldn't speak. He forced himself to breathe, to steady the storm raging inside him. "You're saying..." His voice trailed off, the weight of her revelation making it impossible to finish the sentence. She nodded, swallowing hard. "I never meant for it to happen this way. I never meant to keep it from you." A bitter laugh escaped him before he could stop it. "You never meant to. And yet, here we are." She flinched at the sharpness in his tone, but he couldn't help it. Everything he thought he knew about her had just been turned upside down. For days, he had been desperate for the truth, and now that he had it, he wasn't sure he could handle it. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. "Why now?" he asked, his voice quieter. "Why tell me now?" She hesitated. "Because I didn't have a choice." Something in the way she said it sent a chill down his spine. He turned back to her, his frustration giving way to something else. "What do you mean?" She bit her lip, her eyes flickering to the door, as if she was afraid someone might be listening. "There's more." His pulse quickened. "More?" She nodded, and he could see the fear creeping back into her expression. "I thought I could protect you from it. But I can't. Not anymore." His stomach twisted. Protect him? He had spent his entire life protecting himself, making sure no one could hurt him. And now she was saying that she had been the one trying to protect him? From what? "Tell me everything," he said, his voice low. "No more secrets." She took a shaky breath, her hands tightening into fists at her sides. Then she finally said the words that changed everything again. And just like that, the ground beneath him crumbled once more. His breath caught in his throat as her words sank in. This wasn't just about her past. It wasn't just about the secret she had been keeping. It was bigger, far bigger than he had ever imagined. She had been protecting him, not from herself, but from something or someone else. And now, she had no choice but to tell him, because whatever she had been running from had finally caught up to her. His mind raced, piecing together every strange moment, every unanswered question. The way she always looked over her shoulder. The hesitation, whenever he pushed too hard. The man who had warned him to stay away. He took a step toward her, his voice low but urgent. "Who is after you?" She hesitated, glancing at the door again, as if expecting someone to burst in at any second. "It's not just me," she whispered. "It's you too." A cold chill ran down his spine. For the first time, it wasn't just about understanding her, it was about survival. He grabbed his phone, checking the messages he had ignored all day. Dozens of missed calls. A message from his assistant, urgent. "Call me now." Another from an unknown number, "You should have walked away." His pulse pounded in his ears. He looked up at her, realization dawning. "They know about us." She nodded. "And they won't stop." His mind was already working, calculating the next move. He had spent years dealing with powerful people, dangerous deals. But this was personal. A sudden noise outside the office made them both freeze. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. She grabbed his hand, her grip tight. "We have to go. Now." For the first time in his life, he wasn't the one in control. And for the first time, he wasn't sure if he would make it out of this unscathed. The footsteps outside grew closer, each one sending a jolt of tension through him. He felt her hand tighten around his, her breath quick and uneven. Every instinct told him to stand his ground, to confront whoever was coming. But for the first time, logic told him otherwise. They had to leave. Now! Without another word, he pulled her toward the back exit of his office, his heartbeat matching the urgency of their footsteps. The city lights flickered outside as they stepped into the night, blending into the streets. He glanced over his shoulder, searching for any sign that they were being followed. Nothing yet. She kept close to him, her body tense. "They won't stop until they get what they want," she murmured. He didn't need to ask who they were. He had spent his career dealing with ruthless business rivals, But this was something else entirely. This wasn't about money or power, it was personal. They ducked into a quiet alley, shadows wrapping around them like a cloak. He turned to her, trying to steady the storm inside him. "Tell me everything. No more half-truths." She hesitated, but then, with a deep breath, she spoke. The truth unraveled like a thread pulled too tight. She hadn't just stumbled into his life by accident. She had been running from a past tangled in secrets, from people who wouldn't let her go. And now, by being with her, he had become part of it too. "They think I have something," she whispered. "Something valuable. But I don't." He studied her face, trying to find any trace of doubt. "What do they want?" Her gaze dropped. "Proof." The word lingered between them, heavy with meaning. He exhaled slowly. "Proof of what?" She hesitated before finally meeting his eyes. "That they did something terrible." His stomach tightened. This wasn't just about her past, it was about the kind of truth that could ruin lives. And now they were willing to do anything to keep it buried. A noise at the far end of the alley made them both freeze. A dark figure stepped into the dim light, their presence too deliberate to be coincidence. He moved before he could think, pulling her back, his instincts screaming at him to protect her. The figure stopped a few feet away. "You should have listened," the man said, his voice calm but laced with warning. His jaw clenched. "And you should have stayed out of my life." The tension crackled like electricity. Then, without another word, the man turned and disappeared into the night. A warning, a final chance to walk away. But he knew, deep down, there was no walking away. Not now. Not when the truth was so close. He turned to her. "We're ending this. Together." She looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then slowly, she nodded. And in that moment, he knew no matter what happened next, he wouldn't let her face it alone. The days that followed were a blur of tension and strategy. He called in favors, reached out to the few people he could trust. Every move they made had to be calculated, every step taken with caution. But as the pieces started falling into place, the truth finally emerged. The people after her had built their power on deception, on covering up their mistakes at any cost. And she, without realizing, it had stumbled upon the one thing that could bring them down. They had tried to silence her, to make sure the truth never saw the light of day. But they had underestimated her, and they had definitely underestimated him. When the final confrontation came, it wasn't in the shadows of an alley, or a whispered threat in the night. It was in broad daylight, with evidence laid bare for the world to see. The weight of years of lies came crashing down, and the people who had once seemed untouchable were finally forced to face the consequences. It wasn't easy. It wasn't clean. But in the end, the truth won. And with it, so did they. As the dust settled, he stood beside her, watching the city stretch out before them. The danger had passed, but the scars remained reminders of everything they had fought through. She turned to him, a small, tired smile on her lips. "You didn't have to stay." He reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "Yes, I did." Because for the first time in his life, he had found something worth fighting for. Not power, not wealth, but love. And he wasn't letting go.